Frickety Frack, we do talk back. Thank you for joining me in this episode. My name's Patrick, and I'm Frack. Frickety Frack, we do talk back is a show where I discuss different aspects of fandom and how they relate to the gospel. So I'm going to do a deep dive into the character of Vegeta from Dragon Ball and connect his life to teachings in the Bible. So the name of the show comes from my dad, who dubbed my brother and me Frick and Frack since we were kids. So we're going to be looking at a Vegeta, who is my favorite character in Dragon Ball, all the story arc, and really one of my probably my most favorite character in all of anime, and he's definitely one of my most favorite characters in all of fiction. So his growth through the Dragon Ball franchise, being introduced in Dragon Ball Z, uh, then his uh, GT, Super, Daima. They show how deep and of a complex character that he is. Now, a lot of shonen, anime, manga, they have this trope where the antagonist slash villain joins with the side of the heroes, and so Vegeta is one who does that as well. Uh, Remember, in early Dragon Ball, Yamcha, Oolong, they were all antagonists of Goku, and then eventually join up and work alongside him. And so Vegeta is one as well, and he's my obviously, since I said he's my favorite character in Dragon Ball, he's my favorite of this happening. And so he as he transitions to the side of heroes, one of the things I really appreciate about Toriyama's writing was that they kept the evil within Vegeta and made him, he wasn't doing a lot of things to, protect others or even save the world. But every time there was a conflict after Vegeta joined up with the heroes of Earth, they always gave him a foundational reason for why he was going to help out. Like he had a reason for helping out with the androids, he had a reason for helping out with Cell, and then with Boo, his big thing was that I don't care about anything else that's going on. I want to fight Goku, and everything was a part of all that. And so it's all these really great, fascinating reasons on why Vegeta, stayed a part of this. So let's get into who Vegeta was. And so Vegeta, in the beginning of his story arc, he begins as the ruthless Prince of the Saiyans. He arrives on Earth to conquer it, to collect the Dragon Ball so he can become immortal. He is very prideful and has shows no mercy to any of his combatants. And his first fight with Goku uh, is by far one of the best fights in Dragon Ball Z, and it's also one of the best in all of Dragon Ball. Just this original fight. So then, when he escapes due to Goku showing him mercy, he arrives on Namek, but his arrogance, his uh, pompous attitude, is still very much there. I mean, he wipes out an entire Namekian village. He kills Frieza's henchmen without hesitation when he can. He does get beat, but uh, and so through all of this fight, when he finally fights Frieza, we really see Vegeta's armor crack. We really start to see what has been driving him all of this time when he weeps before dying at Frieza's hands, asking Goku to avenge the entire Saiyan race. Then the Android and Cell sagas occur, and this is when Vegeta also achieves Super Saiyan. Now remember, there was Goku first, and then there was Trunks, and so then Vegeta is the third to achieve Super Saiyan. And so when he becomes a Super Saiyan, his pride blinds him again, and because of that pride, he often makes things worse. Yet signs of change appear, and through his caring for his son Trunks. He doesn't really acknowledge everything and ignores him, but you can tell that he cares, especially when Trunks takes a really big wound at the hand of Cell, and so this is one of those things where we start seeing more of what is going on inside of Vegeta and how he is changing, how he's being affected by being in Goku's presence. Now, in the Buu saga, uh, that growth it culminates when Vegeta, who has become Majin Vegeta, he sacrifices himself and he says goodbye to Trunks before he self-destructs in a final act of love and redemption. Now, in Dragon Ball Super, Vegeta has continued to grow over time. Now he shows fierce devotion to Bulma and his family. He even surpasses his limits when she's threatened by Beerus. He also becomes a mentor to young Saiyans like Kaba. He fights alongside Future Trunks against Goku Black. And then in the Tournament of Power, he pushes past his limits for the sake of his daughter. And during this, at last, Vegeta accepts Goku as his equal, not just a rival. And so when we really look at Vegeta as a whole, he goes from villain to hero. And Vegeta's story is one of pride, redemption, and love, proving that even the hardest of hearts can change. Now, these are some of the highlights of Vegeta and his growth. And one of the best things about Vegeta is that he proves to be a hero and noble warrior time and time again. Now, he is not perfect because he does let his pride get the better of him. And that leads into this biblical theme, which is Proverbs chapter 29, verse 23. One's pride will bring him low, but he who is lowly in spirit will obtain honor. Now, I chose this verse because when we think of Vegeta, we think of his Saiyan pride. And that Saiyan pride was the focal point of his life. It drove everything. He wanted to defeat Frieza. He wanted to grow in power over and over again. So eventually, that he would be able to go up against Frieza and avenge his planet and his race. And so when he was defeated by the combined efforts of the Z Warriors and the Saiyan Saga, he did not think that a lowly Saiyan like Kakarot could beat him, or even the lowly warriors of Earth. So, but then he achieved Super Saiyan, and his pride in himself made him arrogant because he thought no one could beat his royal blood. He had tapped into Super Saiyan, yet the androids proved his hubris, and Cell even more so, because then he had reached the level beyond Super Saiyan. And all this time, he knew he was chasing Goku in terms of power, and he was always trying to play catch up to him. This would lead for him to make terrible mistakes, such as letting Cell reach perfection, joining with Babidi to gain more power to defeat Goku, where he killed those spectators at the Takachi Bodokai. Yet when we get to Super, Vegeta has become a devoted family man. Yet he's always still striving to grow in power and strength, but the reasons for his growth have changed from a lust for power, but to protecting his family. And so when we look at this verse, one's pride will bring him low, but he who is lowly in spirit will obtain honor. Think about this. When people think of the greatest moments in Vegeta's story arc, very often the focal point is when he sacrifices himself to blow up Majin Buu at the cost of his own life, or when he uh, reaches a new level in Super Saiyan 2 when he fights Beerus, even though through the whole time he's trying to placate Beerus the whole time, where everyone else is wanting to fight him. Vegeta's like, no, 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 let's be nice to Beerus, be nice to Beerus. But then his wife, his beloved Bulma, gets struck. And then he's like, forget this, I'm going to fight him. And so he fights Beerus. And then at the tournament of power, he's able to beat Topo for his family, for his wife, for Trunks, and for Bola, and uh, he humbles himself. And so when he has those moments where he's thinking of others and he thinks of his family, he thinks of the love that he has for them, and he's able to do even greater things. Those are the moments that we think of when we think of Vegeta and the great moments that he has. And so, for us, how can we be like Vegeta? You know, one of the things that I do want to point to is that he is always striving to grow in strength and power. But, you know, as I said, he shifted to uh, so that he could protect. So for us as Christians, you know, we're not going to be able to go Super Saiyan, but we can have the ambition to grow in who we are. We can have ambition to grow as disciples of Jesus Christ. We can have ambition to grow the ministries that we're a part of. We can also have ambition to grow the business that we're a part of. But we have to remember and learn, as Vegeta did, that it is good to have that ambition, to have that growth, but it should be geared towards, instead of improving your own stock, to, you know, it's great to have money and wealth and things like that, but we are we growing so that we can take care of others, uh, to take care of God's kingdom, to grow God's kingdom. And so that's so important for us that we can learn from Vegeta in that way, where instead of it's about power, lust, and selfish ambition, instead we look outwards and we humble ourselves, and we know that instead of doing it to glorify ourselves, we do everything to glorify God and what God has already done for us. It is such an amazing experience when we're able to do those things in our lives, where we grow the ministry, where the ministry grows by glorifying God, and it shapes people's lives in that way. And so I want to encourage you today that we look at Vegeta and we look at his path and we look at what he accomplished when he truly humbled himself and he found something greater than himself to fight for. Because we have that too, and fighting for Jesus Christ. Amen. So normally in my episodes, I review an episode and then give it a rating. So since this is one person, and I already said that he's my favorite character in Dragon Ball, uh, probably my most favoritist. I know that's grammatically incorrect. Character in all of anime. So I can't really give a rating other than he's awesome. Great character. In my opinion, by far the best character in the entire Dragon Ball saga. Uh, and and so one of the things that I love about Vegeta is that it led me down the path to enjoy redemption stories of antagonists turned heroes. We think of Gajiel, who's my favorite character in Fairy Tail. endeavor of My Hero Academia is a man's story that moves me to tears when he is trying to reconcile and bring healing back to his family because he knows he has made mistake after mistake with his family. Then there's Neji, who is my favorite character in Naruto, and there are so many other characters like that in anime where they're antagonists or villains turned heroes, or joined up with the protagonist. That it, Vegeta is this shining example of that, and how he is the best example of it. All right, so anyone with questions for me about the biblical lessons that I talked about in this episode, or any other discussion ranging from anime, comics, or anything in general, feel free to email me at frickityfracktalkback@gmail.com, or reach out to me on Twitter at frickityf, or at frickityfrack on Instagram, Threads, and Facebook. I am also on Blue Sky. So please rate, review, and subscribe. Remember that I love you, most importantly, God loves you, and let your faith be your superpower.